Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. In this video, I'm going to be reading out loud several of my activities that I submitted for the AMCAS application 2 years ago. These activities helped me get interview invites at 5 schools, WashU, Chicago, Mayo Clinic, Yale, and UVA. And I think that this actually played a big role in my interviews and the questions that they asked, because a lot of the questions was based on the activities that I wrote about, how I wrote about them. And so I'm going to go through these activities, and I hope that it'll be helpful to you as you're writing your activities. I've also edited several students' essays after and several students' activities, and I'm going to be sprinkling in tips about what you can do, what I should have done, things like that, so you have an easier time of writing this activity. So let's get started. This is just a distinction for a program that I was part of for the entirety of my college, and it was called Medicine and Society. So I wrote about Medicine and Society is a, let me grab a marker. Medicine and Society is a medical anthropology program throughout undergraduate study. For the first semester at WashU, it connected me with City Faces, in which I helped run an after-school program for underprivileged children in downtown St. Louis. I observed firsthand what I had learned from my seminar classes, that health is integral to life, affecting education, happiness, and safety. I found inspiration in the works of Vina Das, Arthur Kleinman, and Carolyn Suffren, physicians who continually learn from their patients. My capstone project investigated social determinants of healthcare in St. Louis, allowing me to articulate the powerful lessons of care that I had learned from professors and peers. So I had trouble writing this one just because it was just a distinction. It was kind of an honor, but I wanted to sprinkle in some more of the work that I had done in the St. Louis area in terms of volunteering. And so I thought that this would be an appropriate place to include that in the experience description. So if you're ever having trouble figuring out what to write about, just know that you can kind of combine different things, as long as it's because this volunteer work I was doing ultimately applied to helping me get the distinction. So I more described the volunteer work that I had done rather than the distinction, because I was giving them more information in this experience description. All right, let's keep going. So the next activity was essentially this family lifeline. It basically connects people who are a little bit lonely in life with volunteers who want to be on the phone and talk to them. And so I talked to this one person during COVID, and I still talk to him every week for about 2 or 3 hours. And yeah, so this is Family Lifeline volunteer. On our most recent weekly phone call, our close friend, Mr. Cruz, a 62-year-old Navy veteran with partial paralysis, finally told me the story of how he met his caretaker. He left me in suspense a few weeks ago, so I was glad to finally learn their story, one that goes back to high school. He was also excited to hear that I'd finished The Prophet, a book that he had recommended because it helped him deal with homesickness in the Navy. Mr. Cruz is my role model. For the past 2 years, he's maintained incredible strength and courage despite serious illness. I hope to continue calling him for the next several years as we continue to share our personal stories. This is actually true. We do continue to talk to each other every week, and it's been one of the best friendships of my life. And so another tip that I want to give you is that a lot of times when I'm reading activities from people, this description is kind of this description that they give, you can kind of guess what they were going to do based on this volunteer. So if you say that you are a phlebotomist, and then your entire description is, as a phlebotomist, I was drawing blood and I was doing this and that. Those are all kind of things that the person would know just based on the fact that you said that you're a phlebotomist. So try to tell a story that adds more details to what you were doing rather than just the job description itself. So if I said I was a tutor, and then I wrote in the description that as a tutor, I prepared guidelines, I taught students, I helped them afterwards, I texted them, things like that. Those are all kind of things that tutors do anyways. And so in your description, you want to take the initiative to tell a story that adds more details to what you were doing beyond just being a tutor. Okay, let's keep going. The next is CNA training. This wasn't a really big part of my application just because I had started the training around the time of my applications, but this was something I was planning to do in my gap year. The training consists of American Red Cross Instruction Skills Lab, clinical training, and long-term care facility and certification exam. So at that point, I'd completed the instruction and assessment portion. And so essentially, this was just kind of something that I wanted to tell them that it was something that I was working on, but I didn't have enough at that point to be able to write a full kind of description about it. Okay, the next one is one of my most meaningful experiences. This was, I was a social support worker and behavioral technician. So in this, I kind of was preparing for this registered behavioral technician certification exam, and I was working with a BACB therapist, and I was working with children with autism, and specifically one child with autism, so that I could help him with functional living. And so in this, I'll describe it here. My shift always begins with John, excitedly opening his house door for me. John is a 19-year-old nonverbal autistic boy. As a social worker, I feel immense gratitude in helping him with daily tasks. We use sign language to communicate. Together, we visit the grocery store, complete math problems, jump rope, play ping pong, bake, and go on walks. To provide more holistic care, I completed registered behavioral technician training and am working towards certification. I also completed one-on-one training with a BACB therapist. Since then, I've been using natural environment training, differential reinforcement, and total task training to teach John functional living skills. And then because it was one of my most meaningful experiences, I'm allowed to have these extra, I think it was like 750 characters to be able to expand on this. So my recent work has been collaborating with John's parents to prepare him for independent living and work as a store greeter. I worked with my supervisor to create skills acquisition plan for 28 goals for John. We are preparing him for the assessment of functional living skills to gauge his readiness for more independence. We primarily utilize natural environment training in which we identify and use reinforcements in John's home to pair with skill goals. For instance, while playing ping pong, I asked John where the ball is in relationship to the table. If he signs the correct preposition, we continue. Otherwise, I'll prompt the correct answer and ask him to sign it for me. I've been fading my prompts since he's almost perfect at pronouns. I feel proud of John for also learning jump roping and directions from school to home. Our two most challenging goals are reading emotions and understanding others' conversations. To this end, I've been watching his favorite Disney movies with him, pausing throughout and asking what each character is feeling and what they're talking about. John has recently felt comfortable hugging me goodbye, a meaningful gesture. As a physician, I hope to use personal bonds with patients and scientific expertise to help people like John follow their dreams. So again, this is kind of something that you wouldn't necessarily know what I would do unless I gave you all this description of exactly what I'm doing. At certain points, it did feel like I was kind of listing the things that I was doing, but I did my best to kind of include a little bit of storytelling to explain what I was doing. But because this was an activity where just the title doesn't exactly tell you what I was doing, I continued to explain things. This was also probably the most asked about activity on my like first or second most, which makes sense because it was one of my most meaningful experiences. But yeah. Okay, the next one is MCAT tutoring. So this was a paid MCAT tutor gig where I was teaching 2 classes, and each class had like 15 people each, or like between 12 and 15, and total of 25 students, and I was paid by the school to teach them after I got my MCAT score. So as an MCAT student tutor for 25 WashU students over 2 courses, I hope I imbued every lecture with a love for subjects. We solved hundreds of exam questions together, sparking fascinating discussions. I was committed to providing comprehensive and intriguing explanations, encouraging a deeper why behind every question. While solving B&B, biology and biochemistry questions, we marveled at the complex architecture of DNA, cells, and organisms built on matter and energy. While solving psychology, sociology questions, we were amazed at how evolution generated sentience, driving complex behaviors. For some students, I provided additional one-on-one tutoring, and I'm grateful to every student for their work ethic and profound insights. So here, I've kind of read other people who said that they wanted to do tutoring, and one of the pieces of feedback that I constantly gave is that, again, you don't want to just give the details of what a tutor does, and I know I did that in some places, but it's also nice to kind of go beyond that and tell a story of either how you helped a specific student and what you learned from that, or how you, or maybe like how you fell in love with the subject again. And so that was kind of what I was doing, is explaining how I fell in love with the subject again, and I hope I was imbuing that love for the subject to the students as well. Okay, the next one is a research project. So I will say that I didn't do too much research in my undergraduate years, and I didn't actually do any basic science research. I only did that in high school. And I did actually English research because I had an English professor who was really life-changing to me and taught me a lot, and I wanted to do research with him. So this was an English research project. French bishop I always have trouble saying his name. I just know Bossuet, writing, traveled from France to England during England's Restoration period. By assessing his material presence in 17th century, our project made inferences about how his ideas shaped England's controversy over Holy Communion. I developed protocols for exploring all of English print between 1475 and 1700 to collect data about the circulation of Bossuet's work. I loved how disparate sources of data, from religious history texts to 17th century book auction catalogs, helped us form a cohesive yet complex picture of Bossuet's influence. This work will be published as this in fall 2021 in Review Bossuet. So essentially this is a project where we had to go to library records and find like what were actual printed out copies of this guy's book that were shown in auction records, where we can actually figure out what is his influence in French language and English language, and how might have his works influenced that period of time. It was really interesting research, and it was the first time that I had done more like qualitative type of research. Okay, I would recommend that if you're writing about research, kind of explain what the research is, first of all, in like as simple language as you can. Like if it's really complicated neurobiology research, it's best to go through that simply and explain what it is without going into all the details of it, but then also explain what you've learned from that research and how you found it interesting, because if you can show that, then it'll be like really good in terms of showing that you have a research interest. It doesn't really matter what the research is as long as you're showing that you're interested, you were engaged, you really like it, and you fell in love with the process of finding a question and answering that question. Okay, the next one is lead chemistry question writer and subcommittee chair. So this was essentially, we were writing chemistry questions for a high school tournament. And I was responsible for a team of 4 people, and we all wrote questions that would become the exam that they would compete in. It was kind of like it's kind of like a tournament that high school students would show up to and would answer these questions. So my 4-person team wrote chemistry problems that would be tackled by nearly 300 students from across the country. That year, our exam had the theme of farming. Through working closely with my talented teammates, I realized that chemistry itself leads to creativity. It is the art of synthesis. I thought about how virtually every material in our modern world has at some point been modified or synthesized in a flask. Writing questions about the forces that underlie agriculture deepened my appreciation for the immense diversity of chemistry and its pervasive role in civilization. I felt proud that our tournament fostered the same burning curiosity for chemistry that writing questions did for me. So again, I was trying to show that writing questions was kind of reinvigorating my passion for chemistry and science in general. But another way that I was thinking of taking this was just learning about the process of writing questions and how challenging that was. And another one was I was thinking about focusing on the fact of teamwork and writing questions with other people and how that required a lot of communication. But ultimately, when you're writing about an activity, I would focus on like one specific challenge or one specific growth area that you had, and really focusing on that, because it shows a lot more than if you're trying to tackle everything about the activity itself. So if I could rewrite this, if I rewrote this as like, I was a question writer, I was a subcommittee chair, that means I was leading people, and I learned about teamwork and communication, and I really like chemistry as well. That's just too broad and doesn't allow me to really tackle a category. Okay, next one. So the next activity is Help to Heal. This is a volunteer program where we went to a local domestic violence shelter and we helped take care of the kids at the child care while the women were kind of doing therapy classes or things like that. And so my initial semester of college, I was a volunteer, and then I really enjoyed that child care experience. So I became a program leader and then a program director, which meant I had more of a leadership role. I got to recruit volunteers. I got to help advocate for resources, things like that. So here's the experience description. Noise, mess, laughter, excitement. I held giggling baby Abel in my lap, playing peekaboo. Out of the corner of my eyes, I saw Jamie pride for her mom's legs. The childcare director collected the older children into the other room, asking me to lead the daily activity while she took care of the younger ones. I used a worksheet to teach the 12 teens about signs of bullying. The children are secondary victims of domestic violence, living with their moms at the Safe House, a transitional housing shelter. As a program leader, then as a program director, I deeply valued the role in leading the team of volunteers to help foster a nurturing environment at the shelter's childcare. Okay, moving on. So the next one is an honor award recognition, and then I had a volunteer activity at the emergency room. So in this one, I'm going to talk about so in this one, I was a volunteer at an emergency room at a local hospital, and I helped the charge nurse greet and escort Carly, who had significant swelling and sprained ankle at a soccer game injury. Carly was crying in pain, and her mother was crying with her. The charge nurse brought Carly a popsicle and struck small talk with the anxious parents. After showing Carly her room, I brought a warm blanket and played her favorite show on TV. When it was time for Carly to leave, I escorted to the parking lot in a wheelchair. She smiled with optimism, excited to recover in a few weeks. I too smiled, having witnessed the emotional ups and downs of her day. It was a tremendous honor to provide emotional support for patients at their most vulnerable time. Okay, the next one is a tutoring experience that I've been doing, and it was actually one of my most meaningful experiences. This is something that I do now with my dad, and we tutor a lot of middle school and high school students in our local area. So after tutoring several of my younger brother's friends for free, many parents requested more services. I started ACE Learning VA for middle and high school enrichment. The company has grown tremendously as I've tutored 75 students personally in the past 4 years. So we started with individual tutoring, and then we moved to group classes. And I primarily teach writing, debate, reading, and Java. My latest project has been writing over 50 informative blog posts. My teaching philosophy is inspired by teachers throughout my life who taught me the beauty behind language, delivering gut-turning aha moments, and helped me discover parts of myself that I never knew existed. I love teaching and appreciate every student that I've encountered. My most meaningful experience remarks. So this was a moment where I could tell more of a story. And since this was not an experience that I included in my personal statement, I wanted to include a story that kind of captivated my love for teaching. So in this, I start with, in my first debate lecture, I was excited and eager to share argumentation skills with middle schoolers. Before the first session, I had dutifully prepared comprehensive lesson notes. Then I strutted into the classroom expecting to inspire. Instead, I was greeted with apathy, punctuated by random shouting and a near fistfight. Sigh, why didn't my students share my passion? At the next few meetings, I conducted drills. Successful students received candy. The results? Screaming kids, sugar fights, pencil fights. Screaming kids, sugar rush, pencil fights. Though frustrated, I realized something. Maybe the meticulous planning was the problem. I came relaxed to the next meeting and struck small talk. Tommy's hand shot up. You heard about the California wildfires? Yep, I replied. It took 500 fire trucks to put them out. The usual troublemakers, now wide-eyed, weighed in, and a discussion flashed like the wildfires themselves, burning on for a full hour. I had a viable format. Each week, students chose topics, and I moderated. I felt gratified when parents reported improvement in children's confidence. The lesson stayed with me. In each ACE learning class, I promised to listen to students' needs by bringing joy to learning. Ironically, in my zeal to teach debate, I relearned the fundamental lesson of debate itself, to be open-minded. So this is kind of, I took parts of my Common App to help write this, because my Common App was also about teaching and teaching in a specific format. And so I kind of wanted to show, again, that as a tutor, I was, first of all, not doing a great job in the beginning, but then showed growth. And so I would encourage you that if you have an opportunity to write about your most meaningful experience, try to show some level of growth in that. You don't have a lot of space to write about it, but I think it is possible, even within the narrow space that they give you, to show growth and to show a story that really highlights your desire to be a great teacher or educator or role model or volunteer or doctor or whatever it is. Okay, I'm almost done. So this is a research experience that I had in high school. It was like a summer research internship, and it was really intense, and I learned a lot about how to do basic science research. So in my monogrammed lab coat, I had a euthanized mouse that seemingly refused to accept death. It tossed and turned violently as its autonomic nervous system continued to fire off signals. The creature lacked the SOX11 gene, thus an unwitting ally in my quest to investigate brain development. The experience sparked my interest in biology. I was awed by the evolutionary continuity that allows a mouse's brain to be a model for human brain study. My project studied the effect of mouse and frog SOX11 transcription factor on neuronal differentiation in mice brain cells. I was thrilled to be American Academy of Neurology's Research National Prize finalist and Siemens National semifinalist. So this was like again, this was like a research experience that I did at the end of high school, beginning of college, and it was a basic science research project, and I got a lot of mentorship throughout it by the researchers that really helped me become more interested in science. Okay, and then the last one I just wanted to show you, because I wanted to show you like an example of hobbies. This is just a hobby of reading, and I would kind of explain that I really loved reading books, I really loved writing, and I loved fiction books in the beginning, and then later I got into philosophy based on my debate club. I was in Lincoln Douglas debate, and then I explained that I really liked nonfiction, and I was asked about this in a couple of interviews about like some books that I like to read, what I was reading right now, things like that. So yeah. Okay, I think the bottom line of the tips that I would like to give you is these are going to be the activities that you're going to be asked about in your interviews most likely, because this is like the crux of what you've done over the past 4 years or past whatever number of years. And so take the time to write them in a way that you feel proud of them, to write them in a way that you're telling a story about what you did. Don't feel the need to tell a story for every single one. It's okay to just describe details about what you did, just because there's so little space to always tell a story. But I know it's more difficult to write stories for each one, but it's going to help show who you are in your activities. Within your story, try to explain details of what you did in your activity. And if you can do that, then I think you're on a great track for writing the best possible personal statement that you can. I really appreciate your time. Leave any questions you have down below in the comments. I'll try to include like an email address or something if you have personal questions that you want to ask me. But yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.